we're going to be doing here is technically servicing the rear differential on my 97 F1 or F250. The reason I'm doing this is because the rear wheel speed sensor is bad. It's located up here on top, but I cannot get the sensor out, so what I'm going to have to do is remove the back plate or rear differential cover to access that sensor, to either try to pry it out through the top or break it and get it out through the bottom. So I thought I'd just kill two birds with one stone while I fix that and go ahead and service the rear diff. So let's see, I broke these bolts loose earlier just to see if my little impact driver will get them out. That one's tough. This impact driver is very old and seen a lot of days. It's a little slow sometimes. Some of these things are really, really tight. Looks like somebody has been into this rear end before, or rear differential. I shouldn't say rear end so much, but somebody's definitely been into it. I can tell because it has a different color sealant on it. Well, I didn't even break that one loose. Much easier. All right, get all that out of the way. Little tip I learned many years ago: we're going to leave this very top bolt. It's got 3 in the top. You can leave any of them in, but I usually pick the center bolt. We're going to leave it in and just back it out by hand a few rounds. And what that's going to do is when you break that diff cover loose, it won't fall off into your pan and knock this oil everywhere. I'm gonna tell you, this oil stinks bad. So if you get it on you, it sticks with you. See, I just got a little old scraper, and I use my hammer and just kind of pry it loose. This gear oil actually looks really good, but we're still gonna change it anyway. And see how that bolt holds your cover on, so your pan, see, like if I was doing that and I took that bolt out and that pan fell, it would cover you in this oil, and it's, oh man, it stinks so bad. I used to hate doing this stuff on rear ends, setting them up and doing ring and pinion swaps and things like that, because man, they stink. All right, let's see what our pan's got in it. No metal, a few specks of dirt that probably just fell off the cover when I took it off. So what I want to do is let that drain. I'm gonna go ahead while it's draining. Use that same scraper I used to get it off, and I'm just gonna go around and get all of the old sealer I can off of that rear end housing, because that's going to have to be really clean, because this thing doesn't have a gasket from the factory. It's just sealed with like a silicone or RTV. When I was working in the field, we always used to use the what's called the, I think it's super gray or ultra gray or something. That's what Ford recommended for these things. But other than that, it looks really well. I've never actually been into this rear differential. I'll show you a little trick. If your rear end still has the tags on it, that'll tell you the information you need if you go to service it like this one. This tag tells you what oil to use. It will, see that says, see if I can focus. It says 75 W140 synthetic oil only. And that's all I run in Fords because of their limited slip differentials and the clutches and things. So I try to only use what they recommend. I was gonna try to give you a little how-to on the other tag. All right, let me go slow and get it in focus. All right, this tag, let me get back. I'm not sure you can read it close to the hole there. You'll see a L73. Now, working in the field so long, I know what that means is a 3L73. So that means this is a 373 ratio with a locking differential, which was very common in these trucks with the 9 3/4 rear end. That's a pretty standard gear ratio. So let me grab my other socket and we'll try to get that speed sensor out. I'm sure y'all can tell I'm on the ground because I do this stuff like most other people. I can't and don't have the provisions for a lift, so I just have to do what I can with what I've got. But I like to keep these old vehicles running. All right, that's going to be, that was the socket I had already, 13 millimeter. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my screwdriver and pop the connector off of it. It's real hard to see. A vehicle lift does make things a lot easier. So I can't remember, I may actually have one of these sensors in my toolbox, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. If not, I'm going to pick one of these up because I have a ABS light on this truck, and normally these are what's called an RABS. We used to call them a RAB system. That stands for rear anti-lock braking system. So the front of this truck doesn't have anti-lock brakes, just the rear. And when you get that ABS light with the rear anti-lock brake system, it's normally this sensor in the back. And what it is, it's just over time it will get corroded with metal shavings or clutch shavings out of the rear differential, and it'll mess them up. Sometimes they're real dirty, but this one not coming out the top like it's supposed to is really got me kind of concerned what the issue is. I don't know if something has hit it or something like that. See, I don't know. Let me see on my camera. This tone ring right here, that's what that the rear, that sensor I'm getting to, the rear wheel speed sensor is what it reads, and none of those teeth look damaged, so I'm thinking it's just something that is that's weird. That's the reason it's not coming out, because I've never, in all my years of working on them, I've never had one to not come out. So let me see what I can do now. See, these things usually you can give them a twist and they'll pop right out. And this one just won't do it. I know I messed with it last week one day, just hoping it was something that I wasn't doing right, holding my tongue right or something, and hoping it would come out, and it never did. So let's see if I can scooch up here in front of it. Definitely have to replace it now. You always want to be careful on these plastic switches. I just put my screwdriver in the wrong place and prized up and kind of broke it a little bit, but it would still be usable. But I'm planning on changing this anyway, so this thing is the worst stuck one I have ever messed with, and I've messed with a lot of them. They used to, you could twist them and them suckers would pop right out. Now this one, it will move up actually quite a bit, and then it's like the bottom of the sensor hangs inside the housing. So that was really what concerned me. There it went. It'll move up quite a bit, but it sticks. So what I'm probably gonna have to do is break it and then try to get the old piece out through the inside of the carrier. Oh, you switch my positions here. Or maybe I can see a little better. I don't know why this thing. There it went. So I did break it. There's the magnet that it reads on. I'll show all that to you. Now, back when I used to do this for a living, I was a lot skinnier than I am now. See, that is the top side of that sensor. And you can see where I was prying on it. I knew it was going to break, and then that's the magnetic pickup. It sits inside that. And there's another piece that was actually attached to it, and that's what broke off. So what I'm going to try to do is try to locate it through the rear end housing and see if I can pry it out through here. If I can get my hands right. Don't know that I'll be able to get to it. That's going to be a tough one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop recording, and then when I get it out, we'll start back. Alright, we're about 30 minutes later. I got the sensor completely out of the bore of the rear differential. I was going to show you what it ended up being. So we have the top that I've already shown. It's just a little, I'm trying to get to where I can see, just a little sensor. You can see on the bottom side where it broke off, and then in that, get it back up there, you can see, and in that was just a little round pickup magnet, and then below that was another magnet. All right, and then around all of it was this metal collar, and it set down over it, and that's what went into the bore, and that's what got stuck. So I had to get a screwdriver and some needle nose pliers down inside that bore to get it completely out. All right, and it took me a little bit, but I'd rather do it right and slow than fast and wrong. So I'm gonna get things cleaned up, locate a sensor, and we'll get it back together. See y'all in a bit. All right, I am back. It's been about an hour or so. I have located my wheel speed sensor I needed. I got some silicone for the back cover, for the differential cover. And I've got the cover cleaned up. I'm fixing to put everything back together. Just giving that cover a final wipe down. Get our RTV put on the cover. Let it be setting up. Kind of wish Ford was like a Chevrolet on these and have a gasket, or I know the older ones did. This stuff will give you a hand cramp squeezing it out on here. You don't really need a lot. I'm putting just a small bead on here. I'm gonna be sure it's all smeared out good on the cover. I'm gonna let that set up while I'm clean the differential off and get it ready. You want to let your silicone set up for a few minutes. Kind of start getting tacky before you put your cover on. Because I'm gonna wait to put the sensor in, because that's how I'm going to fill my differential with grease. Little trick I learned back in the day. I'm sure a lot of people know it though. Instead of filling it through the fill hole, I'm gonna fill it through the hole that the sensor goes in. Makes it a lot easier because it's on the top. Try to get as much of that junk out as I can. This grease really looked okay. Just like I said, I guess I should have tried to get that sensor out before I took the cover off, and this would have been all right, but I was just afraid the sensor was going to have to come out through the bottom. And I really have to, ah-ha-ha. What do we have here? We have metal carnage. And do you know what I think that is? I believe that is part of my original sensor housing. So that's what it looks like. I don't know of anything that would have that kind of structure in the rear end. Because I don't see any kind of damage. The ring gear tooth pattern looks good. There's no epically looseness going on, but there is a lot. I really don't know what in the world that is. I'm pretty positive. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty positive there's no components that look like that inside the rear differential. I'm pretty positive that's part of the that brake sensor that was bad. So it looked like it had come apart and probably got onto the toner ring there and just created some damage. Alright, but there's a few metal pieces. I'll hold them up in front of the camera. We've got a little metal clip deal and kind of a round tube. Not real sure what that is, but it does look like pieces of that sensor housing, the round part. I really can't tell because it's broke all to pieces. I gotta get another rag. Oh my goodness. Ugh. much better. Alright. I just don't see any carnage on the toner ring, which is strange. Alright. Give this thing one last wipe down, and then go ahead and put the backing plate on it. You want to get these things as clean as you can before you go back with the diff cover. What I like to do is stick it on there because I can see where the bolts line up, and then just start going back with my bolts one at a time. I like to get the ones in the bottom fairly snug pretty quick, that way that any residual fluid that might be trying to come out will be sealed off and can't ruin your gasket mating surfaces. And I'm not going to do a full tight, I'm just going to snug it up where the kind of like that. That way that gasket material kind of pooches out just a little bit. There's one of our tags I'm going to go on. Those tags just go kind of opposite of each other. You can just put, as long as they're on there. I mean, they don't have to be on there, but it's nice when they are. That way you kind of know what rear differential you're working with. And I'm going to let this silicone set up for, I really want to let it set up for a while before I actually put any differential grease in it. Alright, and that's my nut for the sensor. I'm just going to run all these down and I'm not going to do a final tightening on them. I'm just going to snug them a little bit. I know you may hear my impact hammering, but this old one really, it doesn't tighten them very tight. Alright. See, this doesn't have to be super tight. I'm sure there's a torque spec. I'm just kind of watching the grease, because you know when it gets tight, watching the silicone, it'll kind of poop out the side when it's got pretty tight. And I'm going to let that set up for a while, so I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, all my silicone has tacked up and everything looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and get this thing filled up with some 75-140 and get the sensor back in it, and we'll have this little project wrapped up. If my mind serves me correct, this thing takes 3 quarts of fluid. So I went ahead and picked up 3 quarts anyways, but the important part of this whole thing is this. That is your friction modifier for a limited slip rear end. These things have clutches in them, friction clutches, and if you don't put this stuff in them, they will make all kinds of racket. So I was glad to find this bottle where I got my actual lube at. I picked it up from kind of it's a guy, he does like pallet sales, and he keeps all this oil and stuff, and because this stuff is expensive at the parts house. You can get it at any local parts stores, but I was trying to be a little frugal, so I got this from him. They actually make, I know, I'm pretty sure Valvoline makes their oil with the friction additive in it already. You see what I'm doing here? I put that oil in the hole where the sensor goes. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, if I can get it loose, I'm going to pull the fill plug out, and that way I'll know exactly when I've got enough oil in the rear end. Yeah, it come loose. On every rear end there will be a fill plug that is it's usually on the side, could be on the back of the diff cover back here, that lets you know when you have the correct amount of oil in this thing. Somebody has put something in this rear end before. I knew there was some funny looking stuff in it, and honestly it could just be the friction material off of the clutches, but I believe, I'm pretty sure I know what that is, and I don't like it when people do that, because it's kind of a little dishonest, and I know sometimes people will do it just to try to get rid of a vehicle. I want to take a little bit of this off on the screwdriver and see if I can get it over there where you can see it. You see that gray stuff on that screwdriver? I'm pretty sure that is anti-seize. The gray stuff you put on bolts and things to keep them from galling the threads up. I know old timers used to say if you had a rear end that was making noise, put a bunch of anti-seize in it and it would quieten it down for a while. And to me, I guess just working on them as long as I did, I'm like, I'll just fix the problem, you know, instead of trying to cover it up. Now, if you were going to be driving it yourself and you wanted to do that, it's one thing, but like to do that and then sell it to some unsuspecting buyer, it's not real honest, and I don't like that kind of stuff. It's somebody such as myself that has been working on vehicles a lot of my life. It's easy to spot this kind of stuff. And you know, when I go to buy a vehicle, if it does have that kind of stuff, sometimes I can look at it and say, well, I know it's had this done, but it doesn't scare me because I can fix it regardless. So I'll go ahead and buy them. This truck I bought to pull my lawnmowers and stuff with. This is actually a 97 light duty F250. So in 97, maybe 98, I can't really remember, they were called light duty F250s. In the later years, they were called Ford 7700s. And whoops, making a mess. And the easiest way to recognize one of these is this thing has 7 lug nuts instead of 5, 6, or 8 like my 2500 Chevrolet has 8 spark plugs or lug nuts. This only has 7, which is really strange because if you want to put aftermarket wheels on this thing, it is not easy to find aftermarket wheels like aluminum wheels. It just has steels from the factory. But I bought this truck to haul my lawnmowers with. Like I said, it's a light duty F250. It is a regular cab, long wheelbase, which is what I wanted. That way if I ever needed to haul plywood or anything like that, it wouldn't be an issue. I could just put it in the bed. I don't have a toolbox or anything on the bed. It's just an open bed. That way I can haul anything. I think bed length is actually like 8 foot. It's really long, which is one of the reasons I liked it. Gives you a lot of options if you haul stuff. Like my 2500 has a like a 5.5, maybe even a 6 foot bed. You just can't hardly haul anything. So if I ever go get anything in it, I have to haul a trailer with it. And this 8 foot bed really solved that problem. So what I want to do, like I said, I think this thing takes 3 quarts. So what I'm going to do is put 2 full quarts in, and then take my side plug back out and see if it's full or not. If it's not full, we'll put some more in it. If it's full, that's all we'll have to do. We'll have this job wrapped up. All right. I'm going to give that a minute just to kind of get down in the differential before I take that plug out. And this rear end service, I keep saying rear differential service is the correct term. This is applicable on really anything with a rear or front differential. You just kind of go by the same steps. And oh yeah, this is going to take 3 quarts. And just do the same steps, you know, take the cover off, or some have a drain, and you just want to kind of look up and see what torque specs are on your diff cover or anything like that you may have questions about. And then after I get this fluid in, we'll throw that sensor in and see if that got rid of my ABS light. Because even when I picked up the sensor at the local parts store, I had them look it up, and this is the only ABS sensor on this truck. Because as I said earlier, it has that RAB system, the RABS, the rear anti-lock brake system. So the rear is the only wheels that won't lock up if you slam on them. This is a old school truck. I really like these old vehicles like this, these older ones, so it's still got the great things like fuel injection and stuff like that. Good air conditioner. But you can still work on them. You can actually get quite a few parts for them. I haven't found anything that's hard to find for this model yet. These are still relatively in use today. I also like these because there's about 5 million of them in junkyards across the country, and I can go to a junkyard or to eBay and really buy anything I want for this truck. Besides wheels. Wheels are hard to find. All right, I'm gonna wipe all that down. And I showed the sensor earlier. I'm gonna show you a new one. This is an updated part. See, it's all plastic in one piece, and I went ahead and put some oil on the O-ring. I got some of the oil out of the differential, and I really hope that's the correct part, because I was kind of iffy about it, but we will find out. Oh yeah. I actually had one of these in my toolbox, but it was for a newer F-150. I think if it's been so long ago, if my mind serves me right, it was a 2007 F-150 that I worked on. I believe that's what year that come out of. So the sensor was actually different on it. Where's my wire? And there's my plug. And she's plugged up, and we're done. So that was, if you had everything here, I mean, really an hour's worth of work, you could have this done. And the differential service, it's really straightforward. Just take the cover off, and there was a few bolts I had missed. Just take that cover off, drain your fluid, it's basically like changing oil just in the rear differential. And I guess I didn't tighten a lot of those bolts up. I tightened them with my gun, but it's always good to go back and check yourself for that very reason. That isn't the first time that's happened to me, and it definitely won't be the last, I promise. Because you get wrapped up doing one thing or another and you'll forget stuff. I have actually done an oil change when I first started doing this kind of work on it was a 7.3 liter diesel, and I forgot to put oil back in it after I drained it, and I cranked it, backed it down off of the lift, and then it died, and I was like, oh gosh. But luckily on those diesels, if they don't read oil pressure, they'll just shut the engine off. So luckily that saved my tail on that. But guess what that taught me in the future? Always go back over your work. No matter if you've done it for a few days or a bunch of years like me, it always pays to go back over it. So hopefully this video has been instructional for somebody, and hopefully it's helped somebody out, because that's really the biggest reason I'm doing these videos, is to help people, because some of this stuff is very vague, and that's why I've tried to pay close attention to where I place my cameras and things like that. And I hope the audio is good, because I couldn't wear my mic under here. But things like that, I really like doing this stuff and teaching people about it, and hopefully I'll get better as I go along. Maybe one day even get a lift. Maybe if somebody from Rotary or Ben Packed or somebody sees this, maybe they'll hook me up with a lift, because I just don't have the money for one. So I just do it on the ground like most people would do. So anyway, if y'all found this good, y'all give me a like and a follow, and I'll keep doing them. We'll see y'all later.